think the deadline for the infrastructure bill was in about a week, but we're already starting to see activity on the Democratic side preparing for taking this infrastructure bill through reconciliation. So we get more legislation passed, more spending passed, and really, frankly, investments in um, making the country more durable and sustainable. We have a lot more to go, but this dance with the Republicans has been about as fruitless as one could imagine. They started, just to give you an update, the last time we were talking about this, really in any measurable way, Shelley Moore Capito, I guess, and they were throwing around numbers like what they would respond to the $1.9 trillion infrastructure bill that Biden was suggesting, proposing. And they started saying things like maybe 600 billion, maybe 500 billion, maybe 700 billion. Their latest offer is 200 billion. They have literally lopped off 2/3 of their initial proposal in terms of what they were going to negotiate with Joe Biden with. Joe Biden countered the other day with $1.7 trillion. So they are $1.5 trillion apart now. Republicans are going to come back one more time, but hopefully we have now satiated the gods of bipartisanship who apparently need the Democrats to do a dance with the Republicans for weeks on end, knowing that the Republicans are just going to sit there and sort of rock back and forth. It's like one of those like really bad, school dances, like in elementary school, where half the kids just sit there on the sides, just looking at other kids
Yes,
dancing.
sure.
And then the other half just sit on the dance floor, just sort of rock back and forth. That's what the.
Well, I
And
mean,
so,
Biden's like weakening the bill by giving a blood sacrifice to the bipartisanship gods, essentially, right? Like he, slices his hand, bleeds, says, "Will you take this? Will you take this?" And then, no, I mean, we're lucky they're so extreme. We're lucky they're, negotiating with essentially a phantom. That's helpful for Biden's purposes, even though, of course, you know.
well, I mean, that's true. Let me just say this.
Yes.
That was the thing that saved Social Security during the Obama Biden years. It
because
was
I mean,
the fact that they
Obama was like,
yes
"Let's do it. Let's do it.
They
Let's
wanted
privatize
to cut,
it." Yeah.
Well, it wasn't so much privatized.
Or cut it. Yeah.
It was cutting the COLAs, essentially recalculating the cost of inflation for adults, and so the fact that the what we called them Tea Party, or they're just the Republicans, said, no way, that's what saved Social Security. And within a year or two, you had the Democratic caucus in the Senate voting to increase Social Security. But this is Capito in April. Here's a quote. She was asked why 600 to 800 billion dollars was the sweet spot. And she said, this is in April. It's just a ballpark figure. It may not even be that much. I don't know. I just kind of threw it out as a talking point. They're not serious is the bottom line. And so the quicker we get through this stage, the better. They will pass the $1.9 trillion. They're going to have to go through reconciliation, which is going to take a little time, but we'll see that. I would imagine now by mid-July. And then at the end of July, we're going to see we're going to get to the debt ceiling. I know folks remember this from the Obama years. It only comes up during Democratic presidencies. I mean, it literally comes up during all presidencies, but we only talk about it in the news because it only becomes an issue when the Republicans don't have the presidency. That's when they start to vote against it en masse. We borrow money, essentially put it on the functional equivalent of a credit card, except for we also own the credit card company is a U.S. government. Um, and there is a pro forma, essentially, uh, vote to raise the debt ceiling, which allows us to pay off the bills that we have incurred, essentially, and or allows us to take on more debt, which allows for the expenditures that we've already expended. This will come up at the end of July. It is extremely close in the Senate. Folks know this. And so that may be where we see the filibuster reform on the must pass legislation of raising the debt ceiling. Now, there's other things that could be done, but conventional wisdom is that we need to pass this bill without going insolvent, without essentially the U.S. defaulting on its obligations for the first time ever on treasuries. And so that could very well be when we see the filibuster get modified, nuked. We're not sure. That could be the moment. And so they're going to want to get this infrastructure bill out of the way. Then we go into hopefully a filibuster free period of time. It's possible. And pass some more legislation.